You have heard it said, perhaps many times, perhaps in many forms, that the universe is listening. That if you align yourself correctly, if you send out the right signal, if you ask in the right way, the universe will respond. Tonight I want to tell you something that will either confirm everything you have sensed about this, or overturn everything you have been taught about it, depending on what you have been taught. The universe is not listening to you from some distant place. The universe is not an external intelligence that monitors your requests and decides, in its wisdom, which ones to grant. The universe does not weigh your worthiness, assess your sincerity, or evaluate the quality of your technique before responding. The universe, and by this I mean the totality of everything you experience as your world, is your own consciousness pushed outward into form. It is your imagination externalized. It is the sum of your assumptions made visible, made solid, made into the circumstances and relationships and conditions that constitute your daily life. When we say the universe is listening, what we actually mean is this. Your own consciousness is recording, with perfect fidelity and without a single exception, every assumption you hold is true, and it is externalizing those assumptions as the facts of your experience. This is not poetry. This is the precise mechanics of how consciousness operates. And once you understand it, truly understand it, not as an interesting idea but as a law, as reliable as gravity, you will never again look at your outer world the same way. You will see it for what it is, the mirror of your inner world, the harvest of your planted assumptions, the report on what you have been accepting as true about yourself and reality. Tonight I want to take you deeply into this understanding, not to give you techniques, but to give you the comprehension that makes technique unnecessary. Because when you truly understand the law, you do not apply it the way you apply a method. You inhabit it the way you inhabit your own nature. Let me begin with what may be the most practically important thing I will say tonight, because it addresses directly the confusion that causes most people to struggle with the law even after years of studying it. The universe does not respond to your wishes. It does not respond to your hopes. It does not respond to your prayers, if by prayers you mean the sincere verbal expression of what you would like to have. And it does not respond to your affirmations, if by affirmations you mean the repeated declaration of something you are trying to convince yourself is true. I know this is not what most people want to hear, but I tell you this out of respect for you, not out of cruelty. Because the sooner you understand what the universe actually responds to, the sooner you can stop doing the things that are not working and begin doing the one thing that always does. The universe responds to your assumptions, not what you wish were true, not what you hope will be true, not what you are trying to feel despite the evidence, but what you genuinely deeply, in the substance of your being, accept as true. And here is the critical distinction, the one that separates those who work with the law successfully from those who work with it endlessly without result. An assumption is not a thought. An assumption is not a statement. An assumption is not a visualization or an affirmation or a meditation. An assumption is a felt conviction, something so thoroughly accepted that it operates below the level of conscious intention, shaping your perception and your response to every moment of your life without you having to think about it. Consider the things you truly assume. You assume you are the age you are. You assume your name belongs to you. You assume that certain people in your life are real, that your history is what it is, that the floor beneath your feet will hold your weight. You do not affirm these things. You do not visualize them. You simply proceed through your life as though they are incontrovertibly true, because to you they are. They are the background of your experience, so settled and so taken for granted that they never rise to the level of conscious thought at all. This is the quality of assumption the law responds to, not the consciously constructed positive thought, not the deliberately generated optimistic feeling, the background conviction, the thing so deeply accepted that you do not need to remind yourself of it. And when you understand this, you understand immediately why most manifestation attempts fail. They are operating at the level of conscious intention, the surface of the mind, while the assumptions that actually govern experiences are sitting undisturbed at the deeper level, quietly and faithfully directing the universe to continue producing what they have always produced. You cannot change your world by changing your surface thoughts while leaving your deep assumptions intact. The universe is not listening to the surface. It is listening, if we want to use that word, to the depths. I want to say something now that I want you to receive without defensiveness, because it is one of the most liberating truths I know, even though it initially feels like an accusation. Everything in your life right now is the perfect, accurate, faithful expression of your past assumptions. Not some of it, not the bad parts, but not the good parts. Not the circumstances, but not the relationships. All of it. Every condition, every limitation, every difficulty, and equally every gift, every grace, everything that is working beautifully is the precise outpicturing of what you have, at some level of your consciousness, accepted as true. The universe has not failed you. It has not misunderstood you. It has not been unfair or arbitrary or slow. It has been doing, with absolute perfection, exactly what it always does, externalizing whatever is held as true in consciousness. If you are experiencing financial difficulty, it is because at some level, not always the conscious level, not always the level you can easily see or examine, you have been assuming the truth of lack. Perhaps you were taught it. Perhaps you observed it modeled by the people who raised you. Perhaps a sequence of experiences led you to conclude that money is scarce, or that you are not the kind of person for whom abundance flows naturally, or that the world is structured in a way that makes prosperity difficult for someone like you. Whatever the origin, the assumption took root, and the universe faithfully has been growing that assumption into your outer experience ever since. This is not blame. Blame would be cruel and also inaccurate, because you did not consciously choose your limiting assumptions any more than a child consciously chooses to speak the language of the household it is born into. Assumptions are absorbed, inherited, constructed from experience, conditioned by the consciousness of those around us. Most of the ones that govern our lives were established before we had the self-awareness to examine them. But here is the liberating truth, the one that transforms this understanding from a source of despair into a source of extraordinary power. The assumptions that created your current conditions are not facts. They are not truth. They are not you. They are states of consciousness that you stepped into and that you can step out of the moment you understand that stepping out is possible. The universe does not care how long you have been in the current state. It does not factor your history into its response. It does not say, you have assumed poverty for 40 years, and therefore you must continue to experience it for 40 more. The law has no memory of the past in that sense. It responds only to the present assumption. The moment you genuinely, not hopefully, not wishfully, but genuinely, occupy a new state of consciousness, the universe begins immediately and without exception to rearrange itself to match it. This is the freedom the law offers. Not the freedom from consequence, but the freedom to change the inner cause and thereby change the outer effect at any moment you choose. I have used the word state several times tonight, and I want to define it precisely because it is the central concept in everything I am teaching and the most commonly misunderstood. A state is not a mood. A mood is temporary, triggered by circumstances, passing with time and circumstance. A mood of happiness or sadness, anxiety comes and goes with the weather of daily life. A state is deeper than mood. A state is the sum total of your assumptions about yourself and about reality. The complete mental and emotional dwelling place from which you perceive and interact with everything you experience. It is, to use the image I find most precise, your inner home. Just as your physical home determines what you see when you look out its windows. The particular view, the particular neighborhood, the particular slice of the world. Your state of consciousness determines what you encounter in your experience of life. You do not create your outer world by thinking about it. You create it by living from a particular state. And the universe does not respond to your occasional visits to better states. It responds to your permanent residence. This is the distinction that most people miss. and it is the one that explains why the same techniques produces such different results in different people. Two people can practice the same visualization for the same amount of time with the same conscious intention, and one manifests their desire quickly and the other not at all. The difference is not the technique. The difference is the state from which each person is practicing. The one who is visiting the state of having does so as a tourist, spending a few minutes there through imagination or affirmation, then returning to the familiar home of the old state, where the old assumptions operate undisturbed. The technique becomes a daily excursion to a better neighborhood, after which the person returns each evening to where they actually live. The one who moves into the new state has packed up and relocated in consciousness. They have established residency. The new state is not where they go when they practice, it is where they are. And from there, the technique is not an effort to reach something. It is the natural expression of where they already stand. This is what Scripture means by the instruction to put off the old man and put on the new. Not the change of a thought, but the change of a dwelling place. Not the adjustment of a mood, but the relocation of the self. So how does one move into a new state? Through one thing, and one thing only: the sustained felt assumption of what it would be like to be the person already living in the desired conditions. Not the excitement of receiving something new. Excitement implies novelty, and novelty implies you did not previously have it. But the naturalness of inhabiting something that is simply and ordinarily yours. Think of the things you already have, not the things you are striving for, but the things that are so fully yours that you never think about them. Your name, your native language, the faces of the people you love. You do not feel excited about these things. You do not affirm them. You simply carry them naturally and without effort as part of who you are. This naturalness, this taken for granted quality, is the feeling the law responds to. Not the peak emotional experience of receiving what you desire, but the ordinary, unremarkable, completely settled sense of one for whom this is simply true. Find that feeling for your desire. Live from it. Let it become your natural resting state, rather than a destination you visit. That is moving into the new state. And the universe, which is your own consciousness pushed out, has no choice but to rearrange the outer world to match it. I want to address now something that is rarely discussed with the directness it deserves, because I have found it to be one of the most useful practical tools available to anyone who genuinely wants to understand what state they are occupying. Your reactions reveal your state more accurately than any technique, any affirmation, any conscious intention. Not your deliberately generated feelings during a meditation, not your confident declarations before a mirror. Your automatic, spontaneous, unconsidered reactions to the events of ordinary life. These are the clearest possible window into the assumptions that are actually governing your experience. Here is how to use this. Ask yourself, when unexpected financial difficulty arises, not when you are sitting in quiet meditation, but in the moment the news arrives, what is your automatic inner response? Is it the response of someone who fundamentally assumes abundance, who encounters the difficulty as a temporary anomaly in an otherwise reliable flow? Or is it the response of someone who fundamentally assumes lack, who encounters the difficulty as confirmation of what they already feared? When you see another person experiencing the success you desire, what is your automatic inner response? Is it the warm, untroubled recognition of one who knows their own good, is assured, and is genuinely glad to see it expressed through another? Or is it the tight, slightly painful response of one who sees in another's success evidence of their own insufficiency? When someone raises the possibility that your desire may not be achievable, your automatic, before you can stop it, internal response to that suggestion, does it land in the settled certainty of a state that simply cannot be disturbed by such a suggestion? Or does it find a purchase, a small but real foothold, in the doubt that was already there waiting for it? These reactions and the feeling quality they carry are not problems to be solved through better technique. They are information. They are the universe telling you, with perfect accuracy, exactly which state you are actually residing in. as distinct from which state you think you are in or intend to be in. And here is the important thing. You cannot change your reactions by trying to change your reactions. Trying to force a different reaction is like trying to change the view from your window by rearranging the view rather than moving to a different house. The reaction is the product of the state. Change the state, and the reaction changes automatically, naturally, without any effort at all, because the new state simply does not produce the old reaction. When you move fully into the state of abundance, not as a performance, but as a genuine relocation of your inner home, news of financial difficulty does not produce the old fear. Not because you are suppressing the fear, not because you are bravely overriding it, but because the state of abundance does not contain that fear. The state itself is the answer. This is why I keep returning to the state again and again as the only work that matters. Everything else, the techniques, the practices, the visualizations, they are valuable insofar as they serve one purpose: moving you into the new state and keeping you there. When they do that, they are invaluable. When they become substitutes for the state rather than means to it, when you practice the technique but return immediately to the old assumptions, they accomplish nothing. Watch your reactions. They will tell you the truth. There is one more thing I must address tonight, because it is the place where even those who genuinely understand everything I have described will sometimes falter. And that is the interval between assuming a new state and seeing it reflected in the outer world. The outer world does not immediately change when the inner state changes. There is always an interval, sometimes brief, sometimes extended, during which the inner assumption is fully established and the outer world continues to reflect the old one. And this interval is where most people abandon their new state and return to the old. I understand why. The outer world is very convincing. It presents itself as solid, as factual, as the undeniable truth of your situation. And when it continues to show you the old conditions, the empty bank account, the absent relationship, the persistent health challenge, after you have worked earnestly to change your inner state, the rational mind draws the obvious conclusion: it isn't working. Do not speak constantly about their desires or analyze every circumstance for evidence that the law is or is not working. They live. They go about the ordinary business of their days, their work, their relationships, their pleasures, and their challenges, from inside a state that already includes the fulfillment of what they desire, not performing that state, not trying to maintain it through effort. Simply residing in it, the way you reside in your physical home, without having to consciously remind yourself that you live there. Their inner conversations, the automatic continuous background commentary of the mind on itself and the world, are aligned with the new state, not because they are monitoring and correcting every thought, but because the state they inhabit simply produces different conversations than the old one did. The reaction to difficulty is different. The response to opportunity is different. The felt sense of self, of who they are in relation to the world, is different. And the world faithfully produces different conditions to match. This is not a life of mystical detachment from ordinary reality. It is an intensely practical, engaged, fully human life, lived from a different inner address. And the outer world, which is nothing other than that inner address made visible, reflects the change with a completeness and a grace that would seem miraculous to anyone who did not understand the law. But to the one who does understand, it is simply the law doing what the law does. Let me leave you with this. You did not come here tonight to learn something theoretical. You came because some part of you already knows that your inner world and your outer world are not separate, that the conditions of your life are not happening to you but from you, and that if this is true, then the power to change them lies exactly where it has always been. Not in the outer world, not in circumstances or other people or fortune, but in the consciousness that is reading these words right now. The universe is always listening, but I want to offer you a different way of understanding this interval. Your current outer circumstances are not the present state of reality. They are the past materialized. They are the harvest of assumptions planted days, weeks, months, years before this moment, assumptions that have now fully grown into visible form. The outer world is always reporting on what was, not on what is. It is the record, not the creator, the shadow, not the light. When you plant a new assumption in consciousness, the outer world cannot immediately reflect it, because the outer world is showing you what was already planted. The new seed is still beneath the surface, growing in the darkness, not yet visible. And in this interval between planting and harvest, the outer world will continue to show you the old crop. Not because your new assumption is not working, but because the old harvest was already in the field before you arrive. Furthermore, and this is important, the outer world will sometimes seem to intensify its contradiction of your new assumption just before the new manifests. Old conditions appear to worsen. Old circumstances seem to press more heavily. Old evidence seems to accumulate with renewed insistence. And this is not the universe telling you that you have failed. This is the old structure breaking up to make way for the new. The soil cracks before the seed breaks through. The old walls must come down before the new building can rise in their place. Persisting through this contradiction is not stubbornness. It is the natural behavior of one who understands the law. When you understand that the outer world is the past, made visible, you are not disturbed by it, any more than you would be disturbed by your shadow on the wall. You might observe it. You might note what it is telling you about where you have been, but you do not take it as evidence of where you must remain. Maintain the new state, not with clenched effort, not with the white-knuckle determination of one who is fighting the outer world, but with the settled ease of one who knows what they know and does not require the outer world's confirmation to keep knowing it. The outer world will catch up. It always does. It has no choice. For the law is precise, and the law is unwavering, and the law says that outer must eventually and inevitably conform to inner. Let me speak briefly about what life looks like for one who has genuinely understood and integrated what I have taught tonight. Because I want you to leave here with not just a principle, but an image of what becomes possible. The person who truly understands that their consciousness is the universe does not spend their days anxiously watching for signs of manifestation. They do not practice techniques with the desperation of one trying to make an unwilling thing happen.